Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David.
And my name is James, and this is where we talk about all things Star Wars. But before we get started, David, I believe we have some names and people we have to thank.
Yes, we do. We have some names and people that we have to thank. To our top tier Patreon supporters: Hayden Hauser, Darth Ace 1, Liam McCallion, Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Deb McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Zach Netzel, Maya Morris, Maka Talatala, Adam Haber, Brad Mackey, Front Row King, and Darth Beard. Thank you so much for your awesome love and support for the podcast. It's awesome that you support us on this level. Thank you very much. And we got some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we do.
What stuff do we have to talk about, James?
I don't know. Before we go on, I want to say one thing. I had the great fortune of working on a short film this past weekend, and I'm not going to say who the actor was who I worked with, but he's a phenomenal actor. He was one of the actors that my buddy said she was like, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be on this short film," and I was like, "No, he's not." And sure enough, I show up and he was like right there, and I walked in, and we started talking about Star Wars because I was all decked out in my Star Wars, what I usually wear. You know what he told me? He said when he saw Empire Strikes Back, the shirt was the ticket, and I never knew that some theaters did that where you bought the shirt and that was your ticket, and it literally had a picture of the ticket on there that said Empire Strikes Back. Like, I don't know.
Wow.
And so if you had the shirt on and you went to the theater, they would let you, that was your ticket to get into the theater. And I asked him if they did it for Return of the Jedi. He said no. So I just thought that was really
Hmm.
cool. I never knew that they did that for some theaters, that you ordered a shirt and that was your ticket and you wore it to go see the movie. And I
Interesting.
wish they would do that again because that's pretty cool. Now I
Yeah,
guess
that,
people
that's a
can forge, people can be be bad when it comes to shirts, and you know what I mean? Like they could
yeah.
quickly put one together, and yeah.
Bender says, "Hey on YouTube. Hey, how's it going, Bender? Nice of you to drop by."
Yes, thank you for joining. But
Yeah,
yeah, a
the
little
whole
fun stuff.
forgery thing is very interesting with that. Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like people are catching on to stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I guess they couldn't do that today, unfortunately. But that would be a really cool thing.
yeah, that would be cool to do a shirt thing. I mean, maybe have like a special like QR code on it that's not
Yeah,
publicized,
and
that's hidden,
also
because
as soon as
anyone
you
could
scan it,
recreate the shirt. I think. Yeah.
yeah, and as soon as you scan it, it's done. It's voided. You can't scan it again.
Right. Right.
So I think that would work. But yeah, I just thought that was really cool little thing he told me, and I was just blown away. And plus of who I was talking to, I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe I'm talking. Um, is that wait a minute, is that marker? Where? Oh, I see the shirt. Okay, I got you. You drew this you drew the design on it. I was
Oh,
confused by the comment, but yeah. But yeah, anyway, so that was a cool thing that happened this weekend. And like I said, I don't want to say his name, but he was a really, really cool guy, and he's really tall. And he told me, you know who he is, David, and you're gonna laugh. He told me that that's one of the reasons why he hasn't done Marvel is because of his height, because he is a pretty tall person, and he
interesting.
said like Chris Hemsworth's the only one who's about his height. Everyone else is shorter than him, and I guess that's one of the things they look for whenever they're casting. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
So he's about like 6'4".
Yeah, he's pretty tall. I'm a
Wow.
short guy, but just looking at it, like when I walked up to him, I was like, "Holy smokes, dude! You are a tall person." And I guess and I guess if you see him in movies, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, he is," but not in person. I was like, "Oh my gosh, dude!" But
Yeah. Yeah.
cool guy.
Well, anyways, in regards to the news that has dropped since we last podcasted, a couple of Star Wars actors have spoken out in regards to a couple things here. So, the first one I want to talk about is Natasha Bordizzo, and of course, she is going to appear in my backyard, not literally my backyard, but San Antonio, Texas,
Oh, okay,
October,
okay.
yeah, October 26th and 27th. which will be that Saturday and Sunday before Halloween. She'll be in San Antonio, Texas, at the Freeman Coliseum Expo Halls, signing autographs, doing photo ops. That's not the story, though. What I want to talk about is what she said about Ahsoka season 2. So this article comes from Bespin Bulletin. It is titled "Star Wars: Ahsoka Star reveals season 2 will be filming by this time next year." Ahsoka, the
Oh my
live-action
god.
successor to the animated Star Wars Rebels, debuted over a year ago on Disney Plus and has since received a season 2 renewal. Since the announcement that the Star Wars series was set to receive a second season, updates on said season have been few and far between. However, we now have a window as to when filming on the second season of Ahsoka will be underway. According to those attending DragonCon, Natasha Bordizzo, the actress that plays Sabine Wren in the series, revealed that she'll be unable to attend DragonCon next summer due to the second season of Ahsoka being in production at that point.
Hmm.
That means that by August 2025, the second season of Ahsoka will be filming. The second season was expected to begin filming next year by fans, though I'm sure there were some that were holding out hope for filming to begin this year. However, it's great to finally hear from somebody connected to the series as to when fans can expect filming on season 2 to be underway. Given the window revealed by Bordizzo, it's more than likely that the second season of Ahsoka will not debut on Disney Plus until sometime in 2026, which again, I'm sure many fans expected. Ahsoka releasing in 2026 pads out the lineup of Star Wars content due to be released in 2026, the first theatrical Star Wars film since 2019's Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. The Mandalorian Grogu is slated to release on May 22nd of that year and is currently filming. Lucasfilm also have a second untitled Star Wars movie dated for December 18th, with the film expected to be the New Jedi Order working title. Movie to be directed by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy and will focus on the Rey Skywalker character as she attempts to rebuild a Jedi Order. On the live-action Star Wars TV side of things, the schedule is fairly light. The next Star Wars series due to release is Skeleton Crew, which will release on December 3rd. The second and final season of Andor is due to release sometime next year, and the second season of Ahsoka, as previously mentioned, is expected to release sometime in 2026. That gives us 3 live-action Star Wars series from now until likely 2027, despite the lightweight lineup. It's been reported recently by theinsider.com, Jeff Snyder, that there are several unannounced Star Wars series currently in development.
Hmm.
So, what are your thoughts on Ahsoka
If
season 2 filming next year? I mean, it's kind of something that's like, yeah, in general, kind of we expected that to happen. I don't think we expected anything to happen this year.
I kind of hoped they would at least start production like in November or December just to get a jump start on 2025 and to have it ready. In my brain, it was to be ready by Christmas of 2025. Like that for me would have been really nice. But now that it's filming, now that she's going to be busy in September, that show's not going to be ready when we all kind of hope it's going to be ready. Because in my brain, I'm hoping this thing is ready right before Mandalorian and Grogu, to where it will lead into Mandalorian and Grogu, or somehow it's gonna coincide with the movie, which I think is the smart thing to do. If you and I were in charge of Lucasfilm, we would try to make sure we had a show that was gonna almost lead into, if not really, really, stuff that happens in the Ahsoka season 2 would really be prominent in the Mandalorian and Grogu. Um,
Yeah.
but if they're filming in the summer, do you think they would be ready by like March to release the thing?
Possibly. But what do you think the move is? I mean, like you said, you
Hmm.
want to go into Ahsoka season 2 and to lead into Mando, and that's kind of your
Yeah.
wish. But do you think that's the right move per se? I mean, how are they? I know they're in the Favaloni verse. I
Hmm.
mean, you would think that since Favreau's directing, producing, Filoni's, I believe, producing Mandalorian Grogu, there has to be some like synergy there between those two
Yeah.
shows. So you think a direct lead in like the last episode of season 2 and then that next weekend or that next Thursday. So if it drops on a Tuesday, you wait a day, and then Thursday, Mandalorian Grogu drops, and just like keep it going.
I would at least give it I would give it a month just to get the general audiences to understand what's about to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
because a lot of people didn't really watch Ahsoka. I mean, a lot of people who are, kind of just like the casual fans, I would say,
Yeah.
didn't really watch Ahsoka. A lot of people don't watch the Disney Plus shows. So in my thinking, I would try to have it drop and then have this insane cliffhanger, and then maybe that's the same day I drop the Mandalorian and Grogu final trailer, and that's when you see, oh, so this is going to lead into what we're about to see, and so that gives the regular audiences enough time to binge watch Ahsoka season 1 and season 2 to get ready for Mandalorian and Grogu.
I think that would be the best strategy. Maybe give them 2 weeks because it's gonna be
Yeah.
if you properly train the audience to think that you need to be caught up with Ahsoka, which I think you kind of do to understand and get all the plot points. Um, and of course, we've talked about in previous podcasts that people will just binge series once they're done. So I guess to suit the binge watchers,
The
I mean, give
the
them two
binger.
weeks. Yeah, yeah. To I mean, yeah. To really, I don't know. I don't think encourage them, but I mean, those people do exist, and
Yes.
there was a report out there that once the news came out that Acolyte season 2 was not happening, the Acolyte became the number 1 streaming show on Disney
Uh,
Plus.
of course it did. Of course it did. Like, I read that and you sent us that, and I was just like, "You've got to be kidding me." So yeah,
Yeah.
in case y'all don't know, it was the most watched show on Disney Plus last week, and I think the week
Okay,
before
but I
that.
mean, it's like kind of like two schools of thought there because there's all those binger people that helped with that,
Hmm.
and then the people that didn't watch the show that had the kind of like curiosity factor,
Yeah.
and they maybe restarted at episode 3 and could just finish off the season. So yeah, I mean it's kind of a weird situation there, and all this kind of happened, and they found out about this once it was announced that, of course,
It was
season
canceled.
2 was not going to
Yeah.
happen. And also, once that announcement was made, The Acolyte was the number 2 streaming show on all streaming platforms after
That's
House of the Dragon.
that's so strange that's the way it happened. People were curious, and then they were like, "Oh, well, let's see what this show was about." If everyone hated it so much, and you would not believe how many posts I've seen on threads of people saying, "I just watched The Acolyte and it wasn't as bad as people were saying it was going to be." Like, people were like, "I was expecting
Yeah.
something horrible, but the story was really, really good." Um, I kept reading a lot of those posts from different people saying they finally gave The Acolyte a chance and they thought it was really great, and they didn't understand what the hatred was, why people were so upset about it.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. It's wild that they people are watching it again. But yeah, I think with Ahsoka season 2, if I was in charge of Lucasfilm, somewhere in that department, I would try to get Ahsoka season 2 before Mandalorian and Grogu, just so people can jump on it. And I think it's also smart, as much as I hate to say it, it is a good thing that they are waiting a while for Ahsoka season 2, which means Filoni is focusing a lot on Mandalorian and Grogu right now, and he's also really focusing on the script for Ahsoka season 2 and for the possible future of what's going to happen with the Mando. I mean the Mando verse, Favreau Filoni verse that we have going on here, and
Favloniverse.
Favaloni verse.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry everybody, but yeah. So I think it's good though because it shows that he's taking the time to do it, and then plus
Yeah.
Skeleton Crew is coming out at the end of this year, which is also in the same, gonna somehow tie into all of this. We don't know how, but that's gonna be something interesting. I know we've seen certain characters, Bounty Hunter, who's gonna be showing up in both Mandalorian and as
Vane.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it looks like there's a lot of moving parts right now, a lot of moving pieces that are just waiting to come together. And the fact that they're taking their time with it is good. I think that's great that Disney is allowing Lucasfilm to take their time with something instead of rushing them to finish all of these shows, all of these movies. Because as we know, it felt like, I guess that was one of the criticisms, was it felt like, yeah, they were kind of rushed to get all these things out. And now we
Right.
have now we're taking a breather. So that's I think that's good. As much as I want to see a season 2 of Ahsoka like tomorrow, I think it's smart that they're going to wait until 2026.
Yeah, and the great thing, it feels like they have a plan and they're
Yes.
sticking to it, and it's taking a little bit of time to figure it all out. 2025 is going to be almost like barren. I mean, we're
Yeah,
going
it's
to
going
get
to be.
Andor season 2, and that's it, right?
Yeah, well that writers strike and SAG after that strike also
Yeah.
really affected 2025. So it's just the way it goes. But
2025 will be a big year for movies, but not
yes,
Star Wars films.
not for
Star Wars
Star
films will
Wars.
hit 2026 with two, then we get one in 2027, and then maybe one at the end of the decade, the big climactic event film that we were promised
Wh- What
last
if
decade.
okay, so here's a question for you and for the listeners, whoever's listening. What do you think would happen if Mandalorian and Grogu are amazing? Is amazing. Sorry, is an amazing movie. The episode, the Ray Skywalker movie, which we're all thinking that is what is going to be released, is amazing. And then the James Mangold movie, which we feel is going to be released in 2027, is amazing. Do you think finally Disney will not be scared anymore and then start giving us Star Wars movies each year, like we were all promised a long time ago? Do you think we'll start to see that tradition start up again?
There's a better chance for it because the direction they're trying to go
Hmm.
is theater, box office. They don't want
Yes,
to do a lot of shows anymore because that just doesn't make the money
as
that
much
they're
money.
looking for. Um, which they're still gonna do TV shows. They're just not gonna do them as frequently. Which they really weren't doing them that frequently on the Star Wars side of the house. But I want to say maybe one show a year, or maybe one show every year and a half. Um, I have no issues with it as long as the quality is fantastic. As long as if it's like cinema quality, it looks like Skeleton Crew is cinema quality.
Yeah,
They spent a lot of money on that sucker. It was like a movie,
that
but
looks pretty good.
yeah, man. A lot is riding on Skeleton Crew. I think for maybe the future of TV on Disney Plus for Star Wars. So I'm hoping for the best. I hope the whole Amblin Goonies things.
Takes
Uh,
off.
yeah, we get that feel, and people or kids, maybe kids fall in love with it. I mean, there's got to be something that they fall in love with in that show, um, and hopefully
It has to. I
there's
mean,
a character. Or, I don't know, something.
just based off the trailer. I mean, like I said, the trailer. I was so excited watching that trailer. I was like, I feel like a kid watching this, and
Yeah.
it was. I'm excited for it. And Bender says, I think not each year, but once in a while. So yeah, he's thinking we're not going to get a movie a year. He thinks maybe every few years we might get a movie. And if you got to remember, everybody, 4, 5, and 6 were 3 years apart. Each of them was 3 years apart. 1, 2, and 3 were 3 years apart. But Disney came in and Disney said 2 years. You need to get these things out every 2 years. So who knows? Maybe we'll go back to the 3 year thing.
Yeah, but I think when you really think about releasing Star Wars films as a fan in our bubble, it feels like you could do one in the summer, one in Christmas, one in the summer, one in Christmas. It,
Yeah,
it feels like you can go like in perpetuity till the earth ends and just do. There's so much story. There's so much lore. There's so much. There's so many creatives out there that can add to it. I mean, there's just so much, man. Adapt the books, adapt the comics,
yeah.
adapt the High Republic. I mean, I think we now live in a time where people are breaking the kind of spoken rules about you can't do this, you don't want to do
Hmm.
this, you don't want to do that, you don't want to break canon. You don't have to break canon. Just go outside of canon and do something standalone, you know? And I've been preaching this for a long time, but
I think they're still scared. I think they're still really scared to do something off of
but
the
what are they scared of though? I mean, all
but
they're gonna do is make more money.
well, he- case in point, Acolyte didn't do as well as they were hoping for and they got
Right.
canceled. You had a whole
So
new set of actors, a whole new set of people, and it was like people were begging, we don't want to be with the Skywalkers, and so they were like, okay, well, what if we just go 100 years before that, and then we'll have a few things, a few familiar things, and
right,
we'll get people. The numbers showed that people weren't crazy. Now they are crazy about it, but I
yeah.
think people not watching Acolyte really messed that up for us to see a whole new series, a whole new show with completely off of the Skywalker saga.
So when you think about the acolyte now, if you do like a Monday morning quarterback thing and look at the entire series as a whole, it's not really what they kind of advertised
No.
before the show came out. It's like not even close. I mean, this was more of like a High Republic show.
Yes.
It was not really see see through the Sith's point of view type of. I thought we were gonna get like main characters as the Sith, and we were gonna get side stuff to
Hmm.
kind of like cleanse the palate, so to speak, at the end of every episode with Jedi. It wasn't like super sinister. It wasn't super dark. I mean, there were aspects of it, but we weren't with Chimere all the time. We weren't
No.
with Darth Plagueis. I mean, we just got a glimpse of Plagueis and found out about a little bit of lore towards the end of the season, but primarily it was the twins, and it was very very light
Well,
side-ish, so
we
to speak.
we we did get this in a way. We got what they advertised, but I think just not in the way that we were all predicting we were going to get. That
Right.
we she said the whole seduction of Anakin Skywalker was really what drove her to write this story, the seduction of how Palpatine convinced him to join the dark side, and that's what she really wanted to explore. I think she did, but we didn't get, like you said, we didn't get a lot of the Sith like we thought we were going to be getting. We didn't get a lot of the villain moments that we were really. I mean, we got some really good stuff, but it wasn't quite what we were thinking of in our heads when it was advertised and when it was announced when she said, "What if the Jedi are not the heroes?" Which I feel it did. I feel it did a pretty good job showing the Jedi as not the ultimate, saviors of the galaxy. Um, I just think there was a few things that we were predicting and hoping for that we didn't get. And I agree with you 100%. If they would have said this is a High Republic, series, I think we all would have been okay with it. You know what I mean? I think we all would have been
Right.
on
Right.
board with it, and then we would have been pleasantly surprised by all of it.
Expectations would have been set,
Yeah,
yes.
because we all would have been like, "Oh, this is gonna be a High Republic era story. This is gonna be exciting." And then as we're watching it, we'd be like, "Whoa, this is tying into episode 7, 8, and 9, and 1, 2, and 3 beautifully, and 4, 5, and like it's just tying into all of Star Wars." So again, like we always say every week, if David and I were in charge of the hype team at Lucasfilm, we would have I would have just said, just tell everybody it's High Republic and advertise it that way. You have a good fan base of people who are into the High Republic who will watch this.
Yeah, you could have made it episodic. You could have said this is episode 8 or episode 9 of the High Republic,
Hmm.
and start from there so you can work your way back.
Ah,
And
I
and
see.
I mean, that would be cool to do as a
That
TV show and have a
Jeez,
crawl. I mean,
God, they do not want to do a crawl. But Kathleen Kennedy
well,
did
yeah.
say that the movies coming out now are gonna have a crawl. So, and it was
Yeah.
really upsetting watching Rogue One and Solo where you see
You
a
had such a great
crawl.
idea, James, for
What you
that.
got?
When you brought up the fact that they would do the episode 4 crawl, you'd be in the theater, and then the crawl would tilt, and it would just show the words,
Yes.
those few
Yeah,
words
that
about,
teaser was
yeah.
that was the best teaser ever. And it was like, what? Yes, this is how you advertise a movie like this. This is great. And what was weird was I think that was only like a Comic Con
Star
trailer.
Celebration. right?
Oh, it was still oh, okay, it was still but then
Yeah.
they didn't release it to the public. Like, that trailer wasn't, like, wide released like
I
all
think
the
if we
other
look it up,
trailers.
someone recorded on their phone.
Oh,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was
no,
back in
somebody did, and
2015.
that's where I saw it, but
And
I
I
was
believe, yeah, I believe it was the Future Filmmakers panel with Gareth Edwards.
oh,
And
okay,
Josh Trank was supposed to be there, but he wasn't.
because he was making the worst superhero movie of all time, apparently, but, just kidding.
Yeah, I
But,
don't know. But rewinding to what you were saying about the whole thinking. There's a lot of thinking going on. I think there is overthinking on the part of Lucasfilm. I
yes.
think that's one of the big issues. They're overthinking Star Wars. I don't want to say Star Wars is simplistic, but there is a simplicity to Star Wars. Star Wars is its own genre. There's a way to make a Star Wars film. There's a certain list of instructions on
Mhm.
how to make a great Star Wars film. And if they were to just kind of tend to that and read that and go by that, I think you would make a lot of fans happy.
Yes.
And you could sprinkle in some new ingredients, you know? You know what I'm saying?
I I I agree. I think it's I mean, hell, Rogue One was suffering from overthinking. From all the reports we hear about Rogue One, that first cut, that first script, the first assemble of the movie
Mm-hmm.
was they were just treating it very, very what's the word I'm looking for? Like reverent, like just oh my gosh, how do we do this? This is Star Wars. How do we make
Yeah,
this?
yeah,
And blah blah blah
it
blah
was
blah.
too precious to them.
Yeah, and then you got, Tony Gilroy comes in, who's not a Star Wars fan, who just says, "Oh yeah, they all have to die, so just kill them. That's it. That's all it is. Just kill them. It doesn't matter." And then yeah, then he just went in there and made it the movie. He made a movie. He wasn't making a Star Wars movie. He was just making a movie. And then in the
Right.
end, some people consider Rogue One the best of the Star Wars. I hate to say it, but the Disney era. But then I've also heard other people say it's the best Star Wars movie they've seen is Rogue One. So I agree that I think there is this weird overthinking when it comes to Star Wars. There's this they knew what happened in 77, they knew what happened in 80 and 83. They saw what happened with the prequels, especially Revenge of the Sith, and all that money it made. And they're like, oh my gosh, okay, so we have to be very careful because if not, we're not gonna make that much money. So we have to just really focus on how we're gonna do this movie. Where I think in the end, Force Awakens maybe may have suffered from that, whereas people think it's kind of a cut and paste of A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
I still love Force Awakens. I still think it's a very fun movie, but it's one of those things where you're wondering, was that one of the things? Was that one of the notes that Disney was like,
Yeah,
you got to make it
totally.
like this. You can't be too crazy because we got those reports from not reports, but Michael Arndt said a lot of what he was doing for The Force Awakens, some of those plot points were in The Last Jedi. So that just kind of shows you the direction the movie was originally kind of gonna take. And then they ended up kind of stepping way back to tell the story. Like I said, I still love it. I still think it's a fun movie. But yeah, I think Disney is really, really scared when it comes to Star Wars. And they're scared to take chances. Whereas Marvel, I think they have enough that it doesn't matter really. Although I did hear Ant-Man uh Quantumania like scared Disney and Marvel like crazy because they weren't expecting it to be that bad. So they are starting to be very careful with their Marvel stuff. So
Yeah, there's a lot for I got a lot of like stuff to say about everything you just said here. But
oh, you're
going
welcome.
back to the Marvel aspect of it all, there's a podcast. I One of my favorite podcasts of all time was when Chris Hardwick was still on Nerdist, or I think he's
Mhm.
still doing a version of it, but he was in the Marvel headquarters and Kevin Feige was the guest. And Kevin Feige went into detail. Because they asked him, how do you make a great film? How are you making all these great Marvel films? And he said, I mean, we shoot the film. If we see that it doesn't work, we just cut it out. If anyone thinks it's kind of cheesy, we just cut it out. I mean, that's all we do. We shoot stuff, and if it doesn't work, we just cut it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, like, what a novel idea. If it doesn't work, you just cut it out. And it's like, but going back to being precious with Star Wars, I am me. I am in my brain, and my brain told me that if I was in charge of Star Wars coming back in 2015, 2016, with 2017 with the new films, I would be terrified out of my mind
Yeah,
on set. I mean, I think even in my house in South Texas, I felt nervous for all
we all
this
did.
to come back around. And I couldn't imagine being J.J. Abrams, him being an actual fan, a real fan of Star Wars, and having to bring it back and having to execute and having to have The Force Awakens be a hit.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to say that he lost time off of his life due to this.
Oh yeah.
Just like when presidents take office, some presidents take office. They I mean, you can tell that they age tremendously.
Yeah.
I think that's the equivalent in Hollywood of taking on Star Wars and re-picking it back up and all that pressure, man. And then Gareth Edwards was a super fan too. Very talented director. Disney brought him back for The Creator, and that's on Disney Plus. You can watch it. And knowing that he's a fan, how can you be that big a fan and have to make a hit with the most beloved franchise in your life? I mean, can you imagine what will go through your mind? I mean, it's like psychological torture, man.
For me, it comes down to the script. If the script is good, you just got to make sure you capture it and block it the right way. And I think the script was the most important part of the entire equation of what they were going to do for 7, 8, and 9. And from what we hear, of course, Lawrence Kaz, Dan Michael Arndt, and J.J. Abrams are credited as the screenwriters of Force Awakens. But then, as we hear, that they ended up actually reshooting a whole other movie. So it's like, can you imagine just the
That's one of the biggest sliding doors like
yeah, exactly,
moments
like what could
in
have
yeah,
been, yeah,
it was a
because
whole I think it actually would have been a better movie.
I, from what we've heard and the deleted scenes and like how it was originally cut up and everything, because Leia was supposed to be earlier in the movie. Leia is like
And
first
you
or
see Maz
second
Kanata
scene.
hand her the saber in
Yeah,
the first teaser, yeah.
like all of that was like huge, and it just it's so crazy to think that then they said, okay, now we have to do a whole other movie, and so like Abrams and Kazdan having to just rewrite pretty much an entirely new movie while your movie is in production. Oh, and by the way, it's Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
the biggest movie. It's could be the biggest movie of all time.
So this is my theory on all that.
What you
So
got?
when Harrison Ford broke his ankle
Hmm.
on the Millennium Falcon, that gave them the opportunity to take a step back from the script, relook at it, slow down because they were in a hyper rush because they had a deadline to hit. I think that's when there was an intervention of I don't know maybe Kathleen Kennedy or Kathleen Kennedy and some other people with Disney Lucasfilm when they maybe stepped in and said, well, let's make it more like what the fans will want because she told press that when George Lucas offered his scripts or his outlines for the sequel trilogy, she said she simply told George, "We're gonna do what the fans what we're gonna make a movie. We're gonna make movies for the fans,"
Yeah.
and that was her instruction. So, I mean, something happened to radically change it to make it more like A New Hope.
And we'll never
Um,
know who it was. I mean,
yeah,
maybe in about 10 more years we'll find out who it was. But right
I don't
now,
know.
anyone is anybody could be the culprit of who made that decision to ultimately change all of the Force Awakens.
Right.
Um, but that's a very tricky subject because it's like you want to make a good movie, but then you also want the fans to be happy, and it's like how do you do that? How do you balance that with Star Wars? Because and now the prequels are beloved. You know what I mean? The prequels are Star Wars for a lot of people, and but at the time, and even Abrams is not a big was not a big prequels fan. So he's watching, and in his brain, he's also looking. He's like, okay, I don't want to do what George Lucas did because there was a disconnect between episodes, 1, 2, and 3, and episode 1 and 2. How do you not do that again? How do you make something fun for everybody to enjoy? And so it was like again, I hate to say it, but it was kind of a no-brainer to do Star Wars: The Force Awakens the way they did because it's
You got to
scary.
reestablish it. Yeah, I mean,
It's so
ugh.
scary, and there's other directors on record. I mean, like David Fincher, Christopher Nolan. I'm trying to think. I think Guillermo del Toro. A lot of these
All the
guys
big
were
ones. All the big ones.
every big director you could think of was asked to do Star Wars, and they all said no. And they all said no for the same reason, which was that is too much. That is too much pressure. Nolan said, "I can't imagine having to put that together because of how much pressure it would be on you." Fincher, the same thing. And Fincher's a and hell, Kathleen Kennedy had just worked with Fincher on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. You know what I mean? So she knew how he could work, which is why she offered him to do
Right.
it. But he said he was like, there is no way I can make this movie. And it's kind of weird to think about that. Even how you and I are talking, some of the greatest directors in Hollywood also said the same thing. Like, no, I don't. I'm going to be losing sleep over this thing.
So yeah, given what I've said, I would be a nervous wreck. I mean, it would not be good. It would not be a good situation for me as a director or a producer or
Yeah,
whatever. I would be hyper, super scared of making a wrong decision, saying the wrong thing. But after everything that's transpired now I think I could go on set and make recommendations because I mean, for me, The Last Jedi wasn't what I thought we were gonna get. The Rise of Skywalker became what it was. We got the series like The Acolyte, which I went in with no expectations, but we got it was kind of like a mismarketed in a way, like we just spoke about. And I mean, it seems like there's not a lot of pressure anymore. And
that's true.
it's an odd thing, man, to going from I don't know, it's what almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, that's wild to think. 10 years
Well,
ago,
it is 10 years because when they started shooting it was 10 years ago.
yeah, they'd already started
Yeah.
production of it, and we'd already gotten that amazing picture of them all in the circle.
Right,
Um,
right.
gosh, do you remember that moment, man? Do you remember that moment when they released that picture of J.J. Abrams
Yeah.
and
I
the
remember I
whole
was in the bar of my parents' house. I had the laptop on the bar and I was treating
yeah,
it like a stand-up desk. And I remember when it came across and I was like trying to identify everyone. And I
and you
think I
saw,
successfully did, except for one of the producers. I didn't identify him at
yeah,
the
I didn't know
time,
who he was.
but I think it was Brian Burke.
Yes, exactly. But man, you saw Harrison Ford, you saw Carrie Fisher, you saw Mark Hamill,
Yeah,
you saw Andy Serkis, you saw, I knew who Adam Driver was because he had just done Lincoln, the movie Lincoln, and I liked
right.
that movie. He was in there briefly. Um, and I knew who John Boyega was. I knew who Oscar Isaac was. I had no idea who Daisy Ridley was. I was like, oh, I wonder who this girl is talking to Carrie Fisher. Interesting. And just that thought of having R2D2 in the box just there in the background was just the icing on the like, it was gosh, that was a moment, man. That was such a because it was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, Star Wars is coming back. It's gonna" you know what I mean? We were like, "Oh, this is actually gonna happen."
Yeah, yeah. So Lucasfilm, we know you're listening, watching slash watching. Invite us to the sets
Please.
in 2025 when we get shooting underway.
I
And
hope
yeah,
to be on
let's do a
that
set
set.
visit.
I'm gonna be looking out for that. I'm gonna be like, please tell I'm gonna talk to my agent, please. Please find it. I'm pretty sure she has submitted me and they were just like, nah. they just
God,
they
you'd be
just
perfect for Star Wars, James.
I know. I
Lucasfilm,
know.
James Herrera, working actor. He has an agent. He has
Yeah.
proper representation. He lives in
I
Hollywood.
that's very true.
All true things.
And I can actually drive to work here. I can actually drive down to Manhattan Beach or any of the studios in Burbank that are just north of me right now.
No
And
transportation issues. He has a vehicle. He's
yep.
got Star Wars stickers on him. I've seen it. So yeah, James is ready to go, guys. I mean,
Ready to go.
just employ him here. And unfortunately, he would have to pretty much not be on the
I
podcast.
could not be on the
Yeah.
podcast anymore. That's like okay, so here's a nerd moment, everybody. My dream would be to be at Star Wars Celebration on the stage and then give a shout out to the Star Wars Stuff podcast. Like that's like a dream I have to be an actor and then to say, before I go on, I gotta give a shout out to the Star Wars Stuff podcast and then just just to do that, because I think that would be a lot of fun and pretty cool.
Yeah,
I can
that would be
dream. I can
great.
dream, right? I can dream.
And you would be like, I'm gonna call up David from the Star Wars Stuff podcast to join me.
And the moderator is like, "What are you doing right now, man?" but but yeah, it is crazy, and to think about how the movies were made, how and you and I always say it, how crazy it is that 7, 8, and 9 are done. It happened. We lived it. We saw it all happen. And so now it's like, okay, so let's see what the next chapter of Star Wars, theatrical movies are gonna be now. And I think we're gonna see a really good shift now that Dave Filoni is now overseeing a lot of it. And it's just unfortunate that he wasn't there really for the writing process of 7, 8, and 9. He was there on set for episode 8.
Right.
Um, I haven't heard if he was there on 9, but we know for sure he and Ryan Johnson were on episode 8 together. And
Yeah.
but it felt weird that they didn't ask him for any help for anything in those movies.
Yeah. I mean, then yeah, they should have because he wasn't one of the creative heads. But I mean, I get the feeling that fans think that Filoni is this like grand overseer figure.
Hmm.
I think he is in a sense, but he's doing his own
Yeah,
things creatively. So it's like, how much can he kind of oversee Skeleton Crew? How much can he oversee Andor? I know Tony Gilroy isn't gonna care what anyone says. He's gonna
yeah,
do
he's
what he
gonna make.
wants. He knows what works. He's gonna get the notes from the story team, from whatever story team person is producing it or whatever. Um, he's gonna follow him to a certain extent, but I mean, it's just one of those things, man. I don't think Filoni can oversee everything and keep tabs on everything, but I'm very interested to see how the Ahsoka story turns out. Of course, like everyone else, I want to see if his filmmaking gets better, if his directing gets better, if the
Mm.
show, because there were some, and ironically, it's the faster, more intense thing. It needed to be faster and more intense in some situations, and I want to say he maybe kind of realizes that. And now that we have the introduction to everyone and everything,
Hmm.
now we have like the groundwork. He can hit the ground running, and it could be fast, intense. We're in a different galaxy. We're on, what's the planet name? Is it Korban, Morban,
Oh, the one other all the way. I think so. Yeah,
or am I missing? It's
I
a
might be
different
wrong
planet,
too.
right? Dathomir. It's not. Yeah, it's Dathomir, right? Where they ended up with the Night Witches.
No, they were on a completely different planet and a completely different side of the galaxy.
No, at the end of the show, at the end of the season, they come
Oh, yes,
back.
I apologize. Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff they can do there. They can put more money towards Ahsoka season 2 because they're not going to do as many TV shows.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think the animation side of the house costs as much as live action, so I think we're still going to get some of that stuff. And Jeff Snyder reporting that there's more,
There's more
uh,
shows.
yeah, shows in the barrel there to be created. I think that's always going to be the case. They're always going to talk. They're always going to be like pre-production stuff and
Hmm.
ideas being tossed around and little leaks here and there getting out of maybe what's going to happen, and maybe it becomes reality, maybe it doesn't. That's just what Star Wars is, and right now it just feels like the budgets are tight. So hopefully, we get it going here pretty soon. And I was thinking when you were talking about all that stuff too, even before, I think even the prequels, I would hear people say there is a formula to making a great Star Wars film, and
Mm.
they started listing off things, and it feels like the Force Awakens kind of obeyed that to a certain extent, but everything else really kind of hasn't per se. And some of them are kind of like, some of the Star Wars rules are kind of funny. Like, you have to have a big chasm. Every
Yes.
Star Wars film has a big chasm that the heroes might be in peril of falling into. And you think about A New Hope, you think about when Luke and Leia
Empire.
swing
Yeah.
across the bridge that wouldn't extend. There's a chasm there. Empire, the chasm was essentially, I think, maybe the asteroid when they went down the
No, it's
space
it's it,
slug.
it's it's Luke and Vader on
Oh yeah, yeah,
the.
Luke and Vader. My bad.
And
You're
they're
like,
on the
David, what are you
window
talking about?
cleaner, and they're on that window cleaner. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I said. I was like, what is that thing? I was like, it just goes
And
in circles. It cleans the
and then
window.
of course a Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi. I was trying to
Yeah.
get to Return of the Jedi. Of course, I was always trying to skip Empire. Um, and then someone writing a creature. Episode 4, you had the stormtroopers on Dewback. Empire, you had the Tauntauns. Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. What did you have? If you're in chat, help us out.
we didn't have any creature writing in.
We had to have, James.
We did not.
We had to have.
We had them on the speeder bikes.
Give me a second. I'll People are gonna say Leia on Jabba. No.
No, jeez, come on. I'm literally going through the whole movie right now, and I cannot remember a single moment. When
Yeah, you're
somebody was
watching
writing.
James and I going through Return of the Jedi.
It's funny. It's funny to see our eyes just like
it's fun. It's a fun watch.
It's a fun watch. Okay,
Not so much of a fun listen.
That moment.
There has to be.
There isn't.
There has to be, James. There's somebody writing a creature. I guess. I mean,
you got.
What creatures are there? You got
what,
the
in Return of the
Rancor.
Yeah, nobody rides the Rancor. Nobody jumps on the Rancor. The only thing I can think of is Chewbacca in the Chicken Walker, but that's not a creature. That's a machine. Yeah, I don't. Nobody rode any type of animal in Return of the Jedi.
I feel like we're missing it, James.
Are we missing it?
I think so.
I'm pretty confident in my rewatch I just did in my head that there is no creature.
What character rode a creature in Return of the Jedi?
I mean, an Ewok would be riding something, but they aren't. You know what I mean? We go to in the indoor system.
The indoor system?
Sorry, my dog just ran in all like violently. Yeah, we go to indoor. There's no creatures on there for us to ride. We just see the Ewoks. And then if we're not there, we're in Tatooine at the beginning. Nobody jumped on any creature at the beginning of the movie. And if we're not there, we're on the Death Star with Emperor Palpatine and Vader.
0 creatures.
Yes.
So
George Lucas broke his own rule for Return of the Jedi. And of course, if you know the history of Return of the Jedi, Lucas was done. He was like, just finish this. Just this is done. I'm over it.
I'm ready to start my family.
Yeah, he was so over Star Wars.
Continue, or to add to his family, because I know he had one daughter at least.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. But anyways, but then you get to, of course, 7, 8, and 9, and somebody's writing a creature in 7, 8, and 9. So
also in the prequels too.
Yeah. What was the who wrote? Oh yeah, I mean, you got the Gungans writing on their things, and then you have
Episode 2.
I guess
you got in there.
You have a lot of things. I was gonna say that weird dust mite creature that Anakin is on, and
right, the Acklay and
whatever
the
hell that thing was.
And...
and then you got Obi-Wan Kenobi writing that amazing creature on Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, that bird lizard.
That was like the coolest thing ever, man. When he does that jump to follow Grievous, I'm like, where is he gonna go, man? There's nothing to grab onto on the way down. But okay, here we go.
But we all knew he was gonna live, though. That was kind of the issue.
Here's what they need to do for the new Star Wars movie: bring back Paul Hirsch to edit The Mandalorian and Grogu. I know he's old, but he knows how to cut Star Wars, so I would give it to him. Anyways,
why not Marsha Lucas?
Jeez, man, she doesn't want anything to do with Star Wars. She's enjoying the checks that are coming in the mail from Star Wars. I don't think she wants anything to do with Star Wars.
All right, so back to our other main topic. Yeah, so Manny Jacinto.
Yes,
he is our favorite non-named Darth character. Here's a picture of him right there. I think he's looking at one of the twins there. So
he's looking right at us. What are you talking about? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, he's looking into your eyes, James. So Screen Rant has an article that I'm going to go over here. I think many of us have heard this news already, and it's quite interesting. It's entitled "Acolyte Star Manny Jacinto hasn't given up on season 2 yet." The Acolyte's future may have been cut short, but Chimere actor Manny Jacinto has not yet given up hopes for season 2. Despite the Acolyte season 1 finale leaving the door open for a potential season 2, it was revealed in August that Lucasfilm opted to renew the franchise's latest show. The move has further served to divide the already fractured nature of the Star Wars fan base, with some viewers actively campaigning to save the show from cancellation despite its disappointing finale viewership and polarizing takes on established franchise lore. During this year's Dragon Con, via. Sorry, an ad just popped up and got really loud. During this year's Dragon Con via Star Wars Holocron on Twitter X, Jacinto was asked what his personal goal was and responded, and this ad keeps on popping up here. Let me mute this. Wow, it's really loud. I don't think anyone could hear it, but I could. It was super loud. So I'll start over again. During this year's Dragon Con, Jacinto was asked what his personal goal was and responded succinctly with season 2 of The Acolyte. And there's a clip out there of him saying, yeah, his life goal is going to be to have The Acolyte season 2 become a reality. And there was the article also addresses a little bit of Amanda Stenberg, which you talked about on the previous podcast, when she had a very heartfelt response to the backlash and the cancellation. So, what do you think, James, about Manny Jacinto and his big goal of having the Acolyte season 2 happen?
I think it's admirable that we have a actor in Star Wars who is very dedicated to Star Wars. He is very, um, yeah, I guess he's very outspoken about it, which is very unique because if you look at a lot of the other actors in Star Wars, mind you, a lot of them didn't have their shows canceled like they did, but then other actors really don't talk about Star Wars that way. And to hear him say that, to hear him say he wants to make it his goal to get another season, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's really awesome that there is a Star Wars actor who wants more for the fans because he knows it's for the fans. And plus, I guess it's a little bit of a ego thing. He was one of the standouts of the Acolyte. I mean, he was probably the standout of the Acolyte because nobody was expecting that. Nobody was expecting that type of character or that type of performance, and he killed it. I mean, he was awesome. I hung on every single word he was saying because the way he did it was so great, and plus his fighting was awesome. Um, so yeah, I can kind of see him saying, "Hey, this would be a pretty good deal for me if I can get another another season of this." But at the same time, he also realizes what it means to a lot of the fans out there. He goes to these conventions. He hears the feedback, and he knows that there's a whole group of people out there who want another season of the Acolyte. Um, I have a feeling, and I've said it before, which is we're not going to get a season 2 of The Acolyte. We're going to get a season 1 of something else with Manny Jacinto as the lead of this series. Um, I think that's what's probably going to happen. We're going to get away from the Jedi because The Acolyte is no longer the title. No longer makes sense if you think about it. If they were to do a season 2, kind of, but at the same time, you can kind of call it something else and it would still work. Um, so the possibility, but man, I don't know, man. Lucasfilm and Disney are so set in their ways. They already announced the cancellation. It's kind of crazy to think they would do another one. You know what I mean? Like they would reverse that because that
Yeah.
hasn't happened.
So it's interesting the way we found out about the cancellation. From what I've heard is that someone from Disney contacted Deadline
Hmm.
and just said, "Hey,
Just
look,
said,
you can write a story on this. It's done." And it feels kind of like unprofessional, a little awkward a bit to do something like that. But apparently that's the story. I don't know. It's odd, and I think maybe Variety and Hollywood
Hollywood
Reporter got
Reporter picked it
got
up. Yeah.
tips as well. Um, but it feels like at this certain point in time that yes, what you're saying is going to happen. We're not going to get an Acolyte season 2, but we are going to get the continuing adventures of Chimere and his new apprentice. And we don't know what Plagueis' role in all this is because that was left very ambiguous and unknown. So we don't know if Plagueis is the master to Chimere or if he was just chilling out there. Maybe he killed his master and was just kind of chilling and just noticed them and felt the dark side
No,
vibes
he's heavily involved
with Chimere.
yeah, with Chimere. Man, can you here is the title of a show that would make all of us lose our minds, which would be something to the effect of the House of Ren or something like that. Like something Ren, I think everybody would go, okay. And then you release the promotionals and it's him, Chimere, and everybody would go, oh, I see what's about to happen. And I think everybody would then say, okay, I want to see this next chapter because this is really going to be involved. This is really going to be involving the Sith and the Knights of Ren and potential. I know we said the Emperor made Snoke, but at the same time, there's a way to kind of just weave it in to how what's going on also in the galaxy with these dark side users. Um, House of Ren, or what do you think? What's a good something with
Yeah,
the
that's a
Ren?
great title, man. I'd go with that. That
Yeah.
sounds fine to me. I would start it off very fast, very intense,
Yes.
like a Bond movie. You immediately drop them back on that planet. Amanda Stenberg, Manny Jacinto versus Darth Plagueis with lightsabers right
Yes.
away. Go into that fast, intense. They duke it out. We all know Manny Jacinto's great with the saber. Amanda Stenberg's good too. And I don't know, maybe it's like a Deus Ex Machina situation where something like knocks over Plagueis or interrupts the fight, and Chimere and Osha may get away.
Yeah. See, this would be, and then he goes and he starts to form. He's like, I don't want to be part of the Sith. I know I've said this before on the podcast, but he's like, I don't want to be part of the Sith. I want to start my own
And you
thing.
can
And he,
have the back and forth between Plagueis and
yes,
Chimere.
because
Chimere
Plagueis is looking for
explaining his motivations and that he
exactly.
doesn't believe in the route, the path, the roadmap that Plagueis has for him.
Yeah,
And
taking over the whole. Yeah,
he's taking Amanda Stenberg as his apprentice for his new thing, the Knights of
the
Ren.
Knights of Ren, and then
You start off right there.
dude, come on, man! Like this is, and then he's out looking for other dark side users who who don't want to, who don't see the way the Sith do, and and he's like, we can create our own group and we can create our own dynasty of dark side users to fight against the injustice of the in the galaxy and everything. And they all wear masks. I mean, we already established it. His mask already resembles Kylo Ren's mask. You know what I mean? Like the shape of it already resembles Kylo Ren's mask. It's there. It's all there. They oh my gosh, man. That would be that would be a good series. And we don't see hardly any Jedi.
Yeah, do you
Um
think it would work out to where there's already like a Ren lore, like there is like Jedi Sith lore, and maybe he
man.
comes across like a book or a teacher, like a old, like almost like a reversed Obi-Wan Kenobi from Episode 4.
I could see something like that because somebody who didn't abide by the rule of two, who didn't want to abide by the rule of two, how the Sith have done that all through the years, and that's scary to.
That's a great like kind
Yeah.
of offshoot,
Yep.
an explanation why he's not Sith, he's Ren because he doesn't follow the rule of two. He doesn't believe in that. Yeah.
Yes. Lucasfilm, we just wrote some pretty cool
I'm
stuff
expecting a
here.
check in the mail.
Yeah, I'm expecting a lot here, man. This podcast needs to go viral because of what we just talked about. I'm kidding. But seriously, that I honestly I think that's a great idea. And I think that's a story that a lot of fans would love to see. And I think it'd be a really cool thing to witness. And just so the fans are happy, Kiadi Mundai's line in the Phantom Menace still does make sense if you go this route that the Sith have been extinct for a millennia. Like they all believe that because of what happened. They're like, that was just some guy. He wasn't even a Sith. It would still work, everybody. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah.
The
We
House of
should be in the
Ren.
story group. Yeah.
House of Ren. has a pretty good name to it.
Very close to House of M,
Very
which is
close to House of the Dragon.
I didn't even think of that.
I thought about that immediately when I said it. That's why I was like,
Okay.
maybe that doesn't work. But something Rin, the birth of Rin. Well, that still doesn't sound good. The rise of Rin. The rise of Rin.
Jeez. Yeah,
The
we're just thinking
Rin.
about names now.
The Rin awakens.
Yeah, so we put our marketing producer hats on. Yes, you still want to keep Manny Jacinto in the family. You want to keep that
Yes.
character of the stranger. I hate that they call him the stranger. He doesn't have a Darth name, but
But
I mean, he needs to come up with a Ren name probably.
yeah.
I
Or
mean,
maybe he becomes he founds the name Rin. You know what I mean?
yeah, Chimere Ren.
Chimera Rin has a good name, has a good ring to it.
And
Not
you
gonna
simply
lie.
mine Leslie Headland's backstory for all that when they played the Kylo Ren theme and
Yeah.
figure
And
out
man,
what you wanted to do.
the concept art for what Kylo Ren was supposed to look like with his helmet, those can be the helmets of the Knights of Ren, the first Knights of Ren, all those crazy designs they had for Kylo Ren. Some of them were creepy. One of them looked like the Scream mask, like it was like open, looked like something was yelling.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, you have so many designs already ready to go for the Knights of Ren.
The children that watch it can handle it, man.
Your
They've got
kids are
the
gonna love
internet.
it. Oh, too
Honey,
soon,
bring the
actually.
kids in.
Yeah.
It's time to watch House of Ren.
Oh, I'm telling you, man,
And
this
then with
could,
the fanfare with all the different helmets, just have the helmets of the Ren characters.
can you yeah, and you go to Comic-Con and all the helmets are just there for on display. You go to Celebration, all the helmets are there on display. The poster is just the helmets on display. Or like maybe it's like in rows, like two, like there's like four or there's like eight of them and they're all it's just the helmets and that's how you promote it.
I'm
Man,
telling you.
that would so many fans would be excited because I think we were a little cheated out of the Knights of Ren and the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, they had a cool fanfare, they had a really cool moment, but I felt like we needed way more of the Knights of Ren.
Yeah, we needed more exploration. And there's a history of that because we did that whole thing with Jango Fett, Boba Fett. So, I mean,
Yeah,
there's
Star
precedent.
Wars is so good at that, and a lot of
Yeah.
people. And so it's always funny when people get mad, like Phasma didn't do anything. I was like, well, freaking Boba Fett didn't do jack. He just did a
Yeah.
few things, and
That's a whole podcast unto itself. But
yes.
yeah,
Anyways,
Manny Jacinto, he's going to be at Japan for Star Wars Celebration. Hopefully I get to meet him. I get his sonograph. I get his picture, that
and
whole
you pitched
thing.
this idea to
And I
him.
pitched this idea to say, look at this podcast that we did back on September 4th. And yeah, you're going to like it, man. Because, I mean, he's in it, man. He's
Yeah,
fully
he's
invested in
and
Star
he's
Wars.
young too. He's still so
Yes.
young, and it's like
Yes, he's like a
yes,
draft pick, James.
yes.
He's a young guy. He's right out of college.
He could be a lifer in Star Wars. Like he could go on a good while in Star Wars,
Yeah.
and it's like, come on, Lucasfilm. He's there. He's excited. Fans are excited for him. Like I think in a couple of years, if they do a good show with him, he could become one of the greats in Star Wars. He could become up there. You know what I mean? He could be up there with the greats in Star Wars.
His acting was incredible. He blew me away.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly defined two separate roles, Chimere and the Stranger.
Yes.
I mean, he just something in his face just turned. And
man,
his
he
demeanor, we'd
fought.
never seen that before. Yeah, very calm. Like the antithesis of Yoda. I mean,
Yes.
come on, man.
And I don't want to say he was better than Adam Driver, but some of the line deliveries and some of the ways he was subtle about it reminded me of Adam Driver's
He was on par
performance.
with Adam Driver.
I'm going to say he was on par with Adam Driver. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, that's too much. I honestly do think he was on par with Adam Driver's performance.
Yeah. Man.
Awesome. This is a good episode. I like this episode.
So, yep, that is a podcast, everybody. If anyone has anything to chime in with in chat, type it now or forever hold your peace.
Yeah,
Or until
and,
next podcast.
If anybody steals this idea from us, please just remember we said it on this date.
We get
the 4th.
residual checks in the mail.
Yes. Man. Anyways, but yeah, thank y'all so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us and each week for listening to us talk about Star Wars because
Yeah.
this is fun. This is what I
An hour just flew by, James.
Yeah, I know. I have some. I took some cheesecake out of the freezer. I think it's thawed now, and I'm gonna watch some Golden Girls and eat some cheesecake.
Nice, nice.
So,
By the way, who's your favorite Golden Girl?
who's my favorite? Jeez, they're all amazing, man. B.
All of them.
Arthur,
All of them are
all
my
of them.
favorite.
Okay, before we go on, did you hear about Deadpool? On the bottom of his like gun and sword were the
Yeah, he has
initials
the
of all the.
initials of the four
And
Golden Girls.
apparently,
Yes.
he really wanted B. Arthur's shirt. He wanted to wear a B. Arthur shirt for the first movie, and
Oh
like her
wow.
estate said no, and he was like, "Please, please." And he goes, "How about this?" He goes, "I will pay whatever you want. I will donate it to whatever charity that because she founded so many charities." He goes, "I will donate however much you want." And her son said, "Okay, that's acceptable." And so if you watch Deadpool, the first movie, when Ryan Reynolds first walks out, he has B. Arthur on his shirt because.
Mm,
But yeah, I'm gonna say B. Arthur. Plus, she's a Star Wars alumni, so you know.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah.
for
Anyways,
sure.
good
And I know
Golden
Ryan
Girls talk.
Reynolds is a big Star Wars fan too. He wants to be part of Star Wars some way somehow.
I would give him a voice, just a droid, but not. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to see
So
his
does
face.
Chris Evans. I think
Oh,
Hugh
Chris
Jackman
Evans and
wants
then
in.
Brie Larson. Chris Evans and Brie Larson are like dying to be in Star
Hardcore.
Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're like they're like James Ferrero pressing their agent. Please let me be in Star
yeah, I
Wars.
know. That's awesome.
Yeah. So when you get in Star Wars, James, you're flying me out, or I'll fly. I'll pay for it. I'll fly out
Okay.
there and I'll be your assistant.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm gonna hold you to that, by the way.
They're
All
like
right, just
they're like we've never seen an extra have an assistant like this. This is incredible, man. It's like how'd you get this? I mean, who's your agent? I mean, what's how's this possible?
I have the best agent in Hollywood, and if she's listening, you're awesome. But anyways.
Yeah, that's
All
great.
right. Well, again, thank y'all so much for listening, and hit us up on. You have it ready on TikTok. We have a TikTok at Star Wars Stuff Podcast on TikTok, and then we also have a Facebook group and a Facebook page, Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We also are on Threads, Star Wars Stuff Podcast. We're also on TikTok or on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Stuff Pod. Instagram, Star Wars Stuff Pod, and support us on Patreon, please. David and I do our best to get on, and pretty much what you see here is what we sometimes will do. But it doesn't even have to be the news. We will sometimes just get on and talk about a Star Wars subject, and just so you know, it's us literally just talking about Star Wars. Like it's David and I, as if we were just in the room together without recording. We would. That's this conversation we'd be having. It's just about Star Wars.
It's
Um,
basically the phone calls we'll sometimes have,
yeah.
and then
I'm not even.
then we tell each other, why aren't we podcasting this?
Yeah,
Why isn't this a podcast?
we've had a few conversations where we've talked about stuff like important stuff, and then we're just like, why didn't we record this conversation? Anyways,
Yeah.
and also if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and leave us a nice little review. We enjoy all the reviews, even if it's bad. Still,
The
we've
bad
had a
one's
few.
entertaining.
We've had a few bad ones, which I guess that's the way it is for podcasters, and we're okay with that. It's fine. But yeah, please leave us a 5-star review, and be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify if you're listening to us on Spotify.
Yeah, and I do want
And
to apologize. I accidentally hit a button on my microphone that made me like really low the last couple
yes,
of podcasts. Now I'm probably decently high,
I think you're good.
which is
What?
an interesting statement. Um,
Not me, but he is. Just
yeah, I'm talking about the mic. Not
oh, okay,
anything
cool.
else.
Yeah, sorry. Thought he was
But
talking about me.
yeah, it's yeah, it was just a weird error on our part.
It-
We were just too excited to podcast about Star Wars. We didn't check our mics, but yeah, and we're still having mic issues after how many years now, James?
I don't want to talk about it. Anyways, well, thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll be back again with another awesome topic. And may the force be with you.
Always.